shirt. At Inform Your Community, we bring events that combine two very important things. First, they bring information needed for specific topics, but they also bring fun to the event. Our website is informyourcommunity.org, and you can find links to many upcoming events on that site under the events tabs, and we'd love to see you at those future events. If you're enjoying it, please share with your friends and let them know as well. The more the merrier on these events. So today we're celebrating Family Month, and it's fun to get everyone together, celebrate different things together, and also have some great conversations. Having a good conversation can be a hard thing, and lately it seems harder in some ways than it has been in the past. In fact, 45% of people say they've stopped talking to someone about politics because of something they've said and maybe differing in opinions of how they see the world. 68% of Americans think that incivility in conversations is a major problem. So this is something that's really important, that we find good ways to have a civil discourse, a productive discourse about things that we might see that are different. So today we're going to be doing a children's craft project. And this is an inclusivity celebration focused on family and love. Stacy's going to lead our craft today. She's going to introduce herself in just a minute. And this craft is a love theme because it's all about the people in our lives that we love, our families, our friends, or whoever else inspires and brings love and joy to our hearts. So to help us talk about the topic of good conversations with our family, Stacy is going to be the facilitator throughout today's events. So Stacy, are you going to get us started today with the crafting event?
Yes, I am, and my pronouns are she and her, and today I'm wearing an orange shirt. I'm a light-skinned female with, I want to say dark brown hair, but frankly it's kind of gray, white hair nowadays. But in any case, and I want to get us started, which is great. And as we go through the craft, if you have questions, if you're, either about the content of what we're talking about or how we're doing the craft, anything like that, or comments, please do go ahead and share those. You can just tell us, unmute yourself and tell us. You can raise your hand, use a little icon, or actually raise your hand the old school way, or you can put the question in the chat, and one of us will be able to help out with that and make sure you get your questions answered. So don't feel the need to wait till the end. Definitely, especially because you're doing a craft, it's easy to just get kind of sidetracked and end up missing a step, and now you don't know what to do. So we want to get your questions answered as we go along. Yeah, so here we go. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about why I chose this craft and how it relates to this topic. So for me, family is about love. For I think many or most, if not all of us, that's the case. And so that's where that heart symbolism comes in. And it's so important to have with the people we love, conversations. Sometimes conversations are hard, sometimes conversations are easy, fun, sad, the whole thing. But we need to have conversations with our family. So we're here to kind of help and just talk about how we can have conversations with our family members. And while we're doing that, we're going to be making this amazing craft that's got this love theme to it. So I can show you right here. So these are a few different versions of it. You may not have the exact equipment in your home, and we'll show you how to make this with equipment from your home as well as with our craft kit. We're very excited because our craft kit sold out this event. So that's exciting news for us. Our events are growing. So we encourage you after the event to come check out the our other events, which we'll tell you about some of them upcoming ones at the end. And we'll and so you can sign up on our website and through Eventbrite. And in the meantime, we will have all the information you need to do the craft right here. And without further ado, I'm going to get us started. John, did you have anything you wanted to ask before we got started?
I'm excited to start the craft, Stacy, so it's all you. Okay,
excellent. So one of the things I wanted to mention is that you've all gotten the craft kit at this point. And hopefully, if you haven't gotten the craft kit, don't worry, we're going to shepherd you through using crafts from your home. What I want to get started right now with is just to let you know what materials should you have. So if you got our craft kit, you got this cool package item, okay? And I'm going to show you all the things that are in here. Okay, so you certainly got our little heart base, which is wood, okay? You got a ribbon, red, because we associate ribbons with hearts with red. You should have gotten some foam stickers of various colors. You can pick the ones you prefer. We also, it's going to be hard for me to show on camera, but we also gave you some, can you see that, John? We gave you some jewels of different colors or different sizes, so maybe some pearls and so forth. And we gave you a container like this. And in it, what you have is a combination of paint, red paint, and glue. And it's about 50-50. And we'll explain why that's important later. And you've got one of our business cards. Don't forget, on the back of our business cards, we had some wisdom to share with you. We won't be able to read it this fast on the screen. Maybe if can we get it in focus so we can, no, I don't think you can read that. All right, well, you'll have to get one of our craft kits so you can see our wisdom. And also you got the description about the event. So I think that covers everything. Oh, no, that's not true. And a sponge, okay? And the sponge is going to be the equivalent of our paintbrush today. Now, you might not have had the craft kit, and we're gonna write these things up in the chat right now. Terry's gonna help with that as I say them, to just type them in, so that if you don't have our craft kit, you can go get the material. So we'll be talking, we have a little bit of a slow start doing the actual craft. You'll be able to go run around your house, grab the materials as you need them. So if you don't have our kit, here's what you need. Ideally, you need anything that could be a heart-shaped base, okay? We're pretty flexible. We know there's lots of stuff we have lying around our houses, Valentine's Day, decorations from years past, birthday decorations, but ideally it's got a heart shape. I asked my kids to just run and get me something shaped like a heart. And how great would this be for our craft? It's just a little like jewelry holder. It's nearly the exact size we need, right? So likely you have something around your house that can serve this purpose of a heart-shaped base, okay? If you don't, it's okay, because then I just want you to get some paper or cardboard or thin sheets of plastic, whatever you have around the house to use. So a heart-shaped base or thin plastic. And we'll make the shape out of that, thin plastic or paper or cardboard. We'll do that in a minute. Then you need, next item is going to be red paint. You can use any color you want. Who says hearts have to be red? You want a green heart, you knock yourself out. It is fine. As a matter of fact, in the craft kit, there are some foam green hearts. So you pick whatever color your heart desires. You're also going to have glue. You'll want to get that. Usually you have that in your house somewhere. If you don't have that kind of glue, the kind of typical Elmer's, you can use a glue stick. There's lots of variety of glues you can use, okay? Depending on the type of glue, you might want to do it when it's a little bit more dry or a little bit more wet, but you can play that by ear as you go along. You also want to have, just make sure that glue is child safe, non-toxic. You also want to have a paintbrush. So now maybe you don't have a paintbrush, well, like we're using, this is just a cosmetic sponge. So you can use a paintbrush, cosmetic sponge. In a pinch, you can take a paper towel and use that for this craft. Just fold it up so it's about this big, and you'll be able to use that as your paintbrush. Also, it would be great if you had some foam or felt or fabric or paper, cardboard, plastic that you can use to cut out smaller hearts. So what I did is I went ahead and I have a larger piece of cardboard and I have a smaller piece of cardboard. So this will be for my big base heart. This will be for my smaller hearts, okay? But you can cut that out of any material. If you do it out of fabric, that's kind of cool. Maybe a shirt you're going to throw out or something like that. The other thing you're going to have, which I showed you, is some kind of embellishments, jewels. Okay, now these could actually be, maybe you have some broken earrings around your house, some broken costume jewelry. I don't recommend using your precious jewelry, but if you have some costume jewelry around your house, you can go ahead and take pieces of that and use that as your embellishment. Maybe you have sequins, that's totally fine. If you have glitter around your house, that's fine. We tend not to put glitter in our kits when we can avoid it. It's not great for the environment, but if you have that around your house, you can use this on this craft to be sure. So glitter, sequins, jewels, anything like that that you can embellish with. And you may have some kids' jewels and things like that. Last thing I would say is have some crayons if you're coming up with these materials by yourself. So have some crayons. Any color you just want to paint those hearts in, color those hearts in. It doesn't have to be crayons. It could be markers. It could be gel pens. It could be paint, whatever you like to color your homemade hearts. Okay. And then the last thing you're going to need is ribbon. Now we have the ribbon in the kit, but it can be any ribbon. As a matter of fact, it doesn't even have to be a ribbon. It could be a string. It could be a yarn. The idea here is really you want something to make a bow out of. So ribbon, yarn, or string would be what you would want. Could be in any color, any pattern. Could be an old shoelace you can use. Anything to just make a pretty bow on top, okay? So now that you have your materials and you know what you need, some of you will be going to get those. I just wanted to mention, when I was thinking about this topic of like family conversations and just like productive conversations, who I thought of, like the first names that came to my mind, and it kind of surprised me. So I thought of, and when we were talking with our team here, people were kind of in agreement. We all came up with people like of celebrities and television people mostly, and particularly Bob Ross and Mr. Rogers came to mind. And although we don't, on TV, they didn't actually really talk to anybody, but they kind of were, right? Because they were always engaging in a conversation with the audience. If you don't know those names, you can Google them. And what they would do is they had really such patience and such calm. And even though they didn't have another person with them, it was just the audience, they even showed they were listening to the audience sometimes, right? In the comments they made, like, yeah, I know you're thinking, blah, blah, blah. And they would show you they're listening to you. And that's really important for conversation. So those were my like great conversation icons. And I never thought I would have said that. The other person I thought of was Oprah, which was not at all surprising to me, because I thought about how long she was on TV and how many conversations she had, all kinds of conversations about all kinds of topics, difficult ones, easy ones, sensitive ones, scary ones, sad ones, funny ones, and with all kinds of people. And no matter what, at the end of the day, she put out a great show with a great conversation with whoever her guests were, or whoever she was talking to. And so I thought, you know what, she's an icon of just good conversation, how to handle a conversation, no matter how difficult or odd or, whatever that conversation is. Hopefully you've had time to buy some kits, to get your materials. You'll be able to still continue as we go along to pick up here and there. The most important thing right now you want to have is that base. So you want to take out your wood heart, your sponge or your paintbrush, and your glue mix. Okay, I'll tell you how to make that glue mix in a second. But take out your base, your sponge, and your glue mix from the kit, or whatever your heart base is, your paintbrush or whatever you're using to put it on, and your red paint and your glue. And I'm going to show you right now. Go ahead and mix your, you can shake up your paint a little bit, make sure the bottle's closed when you do that. I once had a ketchup bottle. I think you might have been with me, John. Yeah, it was you, right?
That's another story for another day, but yes.
Anyway, let's just say the bottle was open when I did this. It did not go well. So anyway, I put you can put the ketchup into a container if you have one. If not, what you can do is take a piece of paper, take anything that you don't mind getting the paint on, and mixing it in. It could be a plate. It's non-toxic paint. It's washable paint. So, in theory, depending on what you have in your own home, put it on something where you can mix a little bit. You don't have to mix a lot, so it doesn't have to be a bowl particularly. It could just be a flat surface. Okay, you're then going to take whatever glue you have. I shouldn't say that, whatever liquid glue you have, if that's what you're using. And you're going to just put about half and half in your container. and you're going to go ahead and mix it. In my case, I'm going to use my sponge. I don't want to ruin my paintbrush, so I'm going to use the back end of my paintbrush. But you can go ahead, since you're going to use your paintbrush, you can go ahead and mix it with the bristles of your paintbrush. Okay, so you're just mixing that together. It's still going to stay red. If you want it to be a little bit more pink color, believe it or not, if it's a white glue, it'll lighten the color a bit if you put more of that. So once you have that, then you basically have the same thing we have in our craft kits. So you have your mixture. If as we go along your glue dries, and this is for everybody, your paint dries, just go ahead and put some more on it, okay? But those embellishments are going to need that mixture in order to stick. Okay, so let's see. Let us go ahead to get that base. If you haven't already found a heart base in your house, I want you to just create one right now. So take whatever material you came up with to create your base, and you can make a freehand heart. Okay, if my kiddies out there who are doing this craft feel like doing that. Now, necessarily, this is actually pretty even, but you can tell that's not even. It's okay. It's perfectly fine. I think they actually look cuter that way. And as a matter of fact, our base, the outside one is parallel, but the inside one isn't. The inside one's a little bit quirky, and that's fine. I think they're cuter when they're quirky. So that's, let's say, your heart base. You can draw a heart. What I might do, if I didn't want to ruin this thing that my kids brought me, I might use this and just draw the heart on the cardboard and then cut it out from what I've drawn on the cardboard. So while you're doing that, you might as well also start thinking about your smaller piece, and you're going to do the same thing, but smaller parts, okay? But we'll be back to that in a second. If you have your base ready, what you're going to do is start painting it. So you're taking your sponge and you're taking your paint mixture that you have, and you're going to go ahead. Now, I just want you to paint one side, and that's because I don't want your table to get too messy right now. If you try painting both sides at the same time, your hands and your workspace are going to be very messy. So we're going to paint one side during the time in this program, in this event, and then after, once it's dried, if you want to flip it over, you can always at your convenience do the other side. So you see how nice the sponge works. A brush will work fine too, but you kind of have to work harder with the brush depending how big it is, because this is a much wider space. So you get a lot more done in a shorter amount of time. I'm doing it in the air so that you all can see it. I do not recommend you guys do it in the air. You want to put yours down on a flat surface and paint. Now, don't worry about getting every spot. If there's a little bit that's showing through the wood, all of that is going to add to the look of it when you're done. If you wanted to only do the inside red and not do the outside red, for those of you who have our heart, that's fine too. That's a totally acceptable way to do it, right? If you have multiple color paints at home, we only gave you the one color, but if you have other paints at home, by all means, you can go ahead and do other colors. So whatever works for you. So this is our painted heart. Let's see if you can see it. Okay, lovely. So that's your painted art. Now, we do need to get to the next part a little quicker than we might otherwise do. But while you guys are finishing painting, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about about hearts being associated with love, which is kind of cool. Hearts are, you know, what we live because we have hearts, and that's how important hearts are to us. And so, you know what, love is the same thing. We can live because we have love too. Our hearts and our love, we're living a good life. So hearts are such an important part of expressing love that we have all these emojis and symbols of hearts on like our phones and our computers that we can share, you know, Facebook, all these other tools, we have little hearts. And we use them in our email or our chats, our messaging, our phone, to maybe Instagram if you have that, those kinds of things, to show how much we love something, right? And it's great. And there's so many versions. There's these versions with little hearts on the sides of the face, the heart eyes, there's big hearts, there's hearts that go like this. So many hearts, but also along with all those emojis, there's so many other emojis that can be used to express emotion. We tend to do the hearts a lot, but actually, as of 2020, there was over 3,500 emojis that you can use to express what you're thinking, what you're doing, how you're feeling. And I'm sure you all know some folks who express with emojis a lot. And then when I think about that, and by the way, as John's one of them, there he goes. And by the way, you can express with emojis even in this, when you're on a Zoom call, there's emoticons you can use. I often forget where they are and I can't see my computer from here, but you can use emojis during a call to say like how much fun you're having and things like that. So always, there you go. John gave us a heart and a thumbs up. So feel free to use those during the call as well. We got some from Terry. We like to feel the love. So it's so nice to get that feedback. And yet oftentimes in conversation, we kind of forget to do that part. Like we don't have face-to-face emojis, right? And we kind of forget that a face-to-face emoji is actually like, yeah, the smile on our face, like John's doing, the hug we actually give somebody, right? High fives we actually give people, saying I love you, all those things are actual emojis we do in real time, right? So I encourage everybody to remember about those, because those things in person that we sometimes forget to do, including things like a sad face, right? Crying, actually crying. Sometimes we're uncomfortable doing those things, showing that emotion, showing anger, showing sadness, showing fear. In an emoji, it's like, oh, just press a button, but in person, it could be a little scary. And so it's okay though, because we can do it in emojis, we can do it face to face, and we can share those emotions with other people as we have our conversations. It's sometimes hard to do, but it's important, and we can do it. We have the actual smile to do it with, as John showed us before.
Well, Stacey, you're talking about communication, and I think a critical part of any communication is letting somebody know how you feel. And in person, you can see the smile, you can see the frown, you can see some of the emotions in your faces. But when you're communicating online, those emojis are there, and they're wonderful ways to share with somebody who can't be with you at that same time how you're feeling. And what is communication if it's not sharing, how we're feeling about the topic, how we're feeling about the other person, how we're just feeling in general? I think those are huge parts of it. So it's wonderful that, all social media platforms now have great ways to share those emotions we're feeling.
It's true. I mean, I bet most of the people on this call only vaguely remember what life was like without having those ways to share our emotions. So it is such a great resource for us to have. John, I'm about to give some more instructions, and it's something I wanted to say about instructions too, because part of getting instructions is that it's important to listen to them, right? And we know that we go to school, we go to work, we know, oh, I need to do this thing. Let me hear how I'm supposed to do the thing, right? And we know that if we don't listen well, we're going to kind of forget what comes next. We might miss a step that's important. We might do the thing that we weren't supposed to do, or do something else that wasn't necessary, and spend more time. So listening is so, so important. And I kind of mentioned listening before when I was talking about my icons of good conversation, Mr. Rogers and Bob Ross. But in conversation, that listening is so important. So we know to do it when we're hearing instructions, but oftentimes we forget that in conversation, we need to listen to. There's something called active listening, where you're nodding and you're showing the other person that, yes, I am paying attention to you. Maybe you say, right? Like John's showing me, he's listening right now, right? Like, yes, I understand. And that way you show the other person, because sometimes if you're just staring with a blank stare, the other person doesn't know, are you paying attention or not? Are you listening? So having those cues to the other person will help them know. And if you're only doing it because you want the other person to know you're listening, that's a good reason. It's a good reason. I think it'll make them happy. So, yeah, John, do you think there's any other things that are important for a conversation that people should be doing?
You talked about listening, and it's so often the case when we're communicating, we want to say our side. But before we can do that, we really need to do two things. First, we need to understand how we're feeling about things. We need to have self-awareness about what this topic is for us. You know, until we understand what might be making us upset or might be making us excited, how can we share that with somebody else? But second is an empathy, an understanding of what the other person is saying. Very often we might start reacting to something before we're really even sure we've understood it. So that's where listening, active listening, asking follow-up questions to make sure that you've understood really is critical. That's what creates a productive discourse instead of a reactionary discourse where we're maybe reacting from our emotions, but we're maybe not reacting to what the person was trying to tell us. We're reacting to our own emotional state.
That's an excellent point. Both really self-awareness and empathy, both really important things. Now, we're about to get to the best part of the craft. I always think this is about. Are you ready for the best part, John?
I'm ready. Go for it.
Okay. So to me, the best part is putting on the embellishments. Okay. So hopefully, if you don't have a craft kit, you've managed to find some embellishments you have in your house, some jewels and other things. Otherwise, you've had time to make miniature versions of your cutout heart. Okay. So I've got some jewels here. And those of you who have the kit, you've got some jewels. So I want you to go ahead and start putting your jewels on your craft. Okay, now some of you, maybe you've already started. That's totally fine. I told you you need to do it while it's wet, and it may be a little dry now. John and I've been chatting. So maybe you've already been doing the embellishments, but go ahead. Now, what I'm going to suggest you start with is start with your hearts. The hearts about 1 inch would be a good size if you haven't made them yet. But it entirely depends on what you've made. So, for example, one inch on this. Oh, let me pick a different color so you can see it better. So this is actually a 1/2 inch art. So you can see, kind of depending on the size of what you're doing, you may want a bigger heart, a smaller heart, totally up to you, right? If you've got this, right, and it's a little bit smaller, you know, the bigger heart stands out more. So this is where you get to decide and design what your craft looks like. So I am going to take a white heart, and I'm going to put it right in the middle of mine. Okay, and notice that with this glue combination, whether the one I made at home or the one you folks got, that pretty much stays on. Now, I know some of you are thinking, oh, it would stay on even if it was just paint. It would, only until it dried. And then it would just kind of eventually just peel or fall right off. So the glue will help it stay on even after it's dried. So it is important. I know some folks think they can skip that step. I wouldn't if you can avoid it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add some other hearts. You can start layering them if you want. You can put them in different places. The hearts are kind of big, so you may not want to put them on the outside, but you certainly can. It does look kind of cool to have just a random heart over there, right? Make sure you can put some additional glue on, a glue paint on, if you find it's not sticking. Whoop, here. So you've got that. There you go. And I'm going to just add a little bit more glue on mine. So go ahead and embellish these, put them wherever you want. Again, if you get glue on your hearts, don't you worry about that. That's a fine thing, because it'll just add to the fun that it looks like. In my case, I'm going to even take off 2 of these because I said, you know what? I think it looks too fancy that way. So I'm going to do, or too hectic that way. I'm going to do it like more like that. Okay. Now, don't have to make them even. Don't have to use all of them. pick the colors you want, design it however you want, have fun. Now, probably should have said this earlier, but this is at least now is a good time to mention, since I didn't mention earlier, that you probably want to have a damp rag or towel nearby while you're doing this craft. That's because it's paint and it's glue, so it can get a little messy. I also like to have a dry one too, so I can wipe off the paint. It comes off really easy, so you can wipe off the paint and then you can dry your hands. So let's see where we are. We're adding our jewels. Some of you have, adding the jewels is the next step. You may find at this point you need to add some more of your glue paint mixture. If you don't have our kit at home and you have the glue and the paint separate, you can just add the glue directly. Sometimes though, this is my caveat, sometimes when you do that, depending on your paint will not dry clear. So that's another benefit of mixing it, is then you know the color consistency will be what you want it to be. Whereas sometimes depending on the paint you use, it might not dry clear. And so like one part of it will look a slightly different color than the rest of it. Also, it may dry, not a different color, but like gloppy. What's the word? Anybody know that word? Somebody can put it in the chat for me.
So we'll go gloopy.
Gloopy? We'll go with gloopy. Okay.
We'll go with it.
We'll go with gloopy. So it may dry glumpy? I don't know. Anyway, clumpy maybe, so that it'll just look weird, a different kind of dimension. It'll be sticking out in a certain spot. Whereas again, if you put all the glue and the paint together, it'll be more consistent across. So here you go. What I'm doing is I'm just putting some jewels in random places. And now I know you probably saw where I was putting the hearts and you were thinking, okay, she's crazy. Why is she putting the hearts all over the place? But once you start adding the other embellishments, it's a fun kind of eclectic look that I always like to see in a craft. And you can put I put 2 small ones right next to each other. And that's okay, because again, you get that kind of variety that looks like you meant to do it, which you did in here. The most famous artists were abstract artists, right? Who can make simple things look like so unique and interesting. So that you might as well go for that. If symmetry is more your thing or simplicity is more your thing, that is totally fine too. If you have some sequins, you can go ahead and add those as well. Find spots that you want your sequins in. Make sure you have enough glue so you can keep going with that. And the other thing I'm going to say is, if you do have glitter, I actually want to put one more. You can do overkill with these jewels too, because they're so fun to use. But I think I needed one more just right on the bottom next to that heart. So actually, before I get to the glitter, one more thing I'll say is, if you have glue separate at home, what you can also do is go ahead and put and I'm going to tell you a little secret, but you can go ahead and put your jewels right on top of the heart itself. I'm sorry, there's lots of hearts here. On top of the foam hearts or your little 1-inch hearts. So you see on that pink heart, I added a jewel, right? So you can go ahead and put it anywhere on this design you want, okay? It is possible to have overkill, you have too many, but follow your heart. I promised a secret and I promised we're gonna go to glitter. So first is the secret. You know why I put that little heart there? Is because I had a beautiful oops, okay? That's right, that's what they call it, beautiful oops. I had a little smudge from the red paint there that I didn't like there, because none of my other hearts have smudges on them. And so I was like, just that one little smudge. You know what? I'm going to cover it up with a little happy, as Bob Ross would say, a happy little jewel right over there. And now you can't see my smudge. So that's my little secret. I've got a little smudge hidden. But again, if you've got, and I'll do it right now just for fun. If you've got smudges, you can also go ahead and own that, right? And you can start on purpose making other little designs, right? Can you see that okay, John? See what? So you can make.
Can see it.
Huh? Yeah, you got it. So you can go ahead and make all kinds of designs in there. If you wanted to go crazy, you had unlimited time, you can make stripes on your hearts. You can do all kinds of things. Last thing I wanted to say on this part of the craft is you can take some glitter. And by the way, I'm doing it this way. The only reason I did it this way is because it was a new container and I didn't open the top right. So another little oops there. But you can take your glitter, whether you shake it on or you put it on your hand, okay? And this is how I like to do glitter. So don't do your glitter yet. Don't do your glitter. I know you're dying to do, don't do your glitter yet. I'm gonna tell you. Okay, here's my glitter secret. If you shake it on, it's fine, as long as the shaker's on the one with the little holes, that's fine, because it'll just come out a little bit in different places. If you've got just like a bunch of glitter, like I do, this is what you do, is you rub your hands together and then over what you want the glitter to go on, and then that will spread it out. So I don't know if the glitter is going to come out. Oh yeah, see, can see my little sparkles there. Okay, so if you do that, then your glitter will not be just in one big clump. Having said that, if your glitter ends up being in one big clump, so be it. That is fine. Don't worry about it. So while you guys do that,
Stacy, why don't we give
mind?
everybody a few minutes to catch up with their decorating, because we want those hearts to be super fancy. While they're doing that, I was just thinking, we're entering what's often considered the holiday season. And regardless of, what holidays your particular family celebrates, one of the commonalities with all families around the holidays is we get together. People get together and celebrate those holidays in different ways. It's a great time to practice some of the communication skills that we were talking about. And some of the things that you can ask people about to show your interest, which is a great way to start a conversation. Simple things. Hey, Mom, hey, Dad, what was this holiday like when you were younger? Or maybe your favorite Uncle John. You want to know, he loves hiking. So, hey, Uncle John, have you been on any interesting hikes, or how did you get started hiking? Or whatever might be relevant to the people in your family. Think about some questions in between now and then, and use that holiday as a chance to open some great conversations with them.
That's an excellent point. Some of my favorite topics are what's your favorite food? Because usually you have great conversations over meals. So I like to ask people, what's your favorite food? And then it gives you that opportunity to say things that you like, you dislike, and you're sharing some personal preferences, which is nice, opens up conversation. And I also like to ask people, like, what's their favorite memories from, previous Thanksgivings or with this person, some conversations like that. And boy, we have lots of time. I know you said holiday season's coming on us, but hopefully it's still far enough away. We have plenty of time to practice our, talking to people and having conversations and starting conversations before then. So Thanksgiving we'll be able to start lots of conversations. Let's see, what is next on my little list here? So this one's going to be a little bit more complicated for those of you who don't have our kit, but we'll walk through it. Those of you who do have the kit, that on the top of your base, you've got a handle on here. Handle's not right, a loop on top. Yeah, let's see. Can you see you can't see there you go. There's the loop. There's the loop. So there's a loop on top, so you'll be able to hang it easy, okay? That's also going to be what we're going to wrap our ribbon around. So I need all of you folks who have the kit. You keep doing what you're doing. So now I'm going to talk to the folks who don't have the kit for a minute or two. And what I wanted to share with you is that we have, whatever you're using, let's say you're using something you had in your house. Let's say you're using something you cut, okay? Whatever it is, you're going to have a kind of different strategy to make that loop around the top. Now you may decide, I don't want to hang it. And that's totally fine. You don't need to figure out how to make the loop on top. But you might want to figure out how to add the bow. So we'll talk about options for that. But right now, I just want to talk to you about making the loop on top, okay? So here we have the cardboard, and here we have my object I found in the house, technically my kids found in the house, okay? For the object we found in the house, there is no easy way for me to make this into it without damaging it. And then you want to know that. So in this case, probably if I had decorated this, I would just keep it flat because it's kind of meant to be that way, right? So that's fine. I'd probably just keep it as a flat object, a flat decoration, maybe as a paperweight. It won't necessarily be able to hold things as nicely as before because it's not flat inside, but it probably still would do fine for that as well. So kind of lean into what the object wants to be, right? This wants to be flat. We're going to let it just be flat, even with our decorations on it. But if you have something that either you don't mind putting a hole through or lends itself to having a hole on top, then that's perfect. So our little part that we made lends itself to having a hole on top. You may already have an object that has a loop in it on top or a hole in it on top already, or some other way is already able to be hung, then you don't have to do anything. But if you're like me and I've got this with my, it doesn't have it's cardboard, it does not have a hole in it. I need to figure that out because I do want this one to be hung. Now I'm going to use a pen. Really, if you were doing this and you had your family's help or you knew where these things were, you would do a hole punch, would be the best thing to use, even for cardboard, because you have to have a little strength, but you can do the hole puncher through the cardboard, okay? Or you can use what a parent can use, or family member can use what's called an awl. I believe it's AWL. If anybody wants to spell check me. And that's got a pointy tip in the front of it, and that'll just pierce right through this. You definitely don't want to be the one to do this. You want to let a grown-up do this. The other thing you can do if you're a little bit older but not a grown-up yet is you can take a pen, put your heart on a hard surface, but just slightly higher so that it's like slightly higher, and poke through where you want the hole to be. Make sure your fingers are not behind where you're putting that poker, okay? But you poke through where you want your hole to be. Can you see that hole, John?
Barely.
Yeah, it's a very small, there you go, very small hole. So you're poking through where you want that hole to be, and then you can go ahead and take a string. You can even take a twisty tie. If you have twisty ties in the house, a twisty tie, a string, a ribbon, anything like that, and put it through the hole and hang it up. If you have a paper clip, you can use that just as it is and put that paper clip through it, and you can hang it using the paper clip. So pretty flexible, but key is you have to have a hole. What I do not want you to do in trying to do this part is use a pencil, okay? Don't use a pencil. That's just destined to go horribly wrong, because a pencil, when you put pressure on it, is going to break. That's what pencils do. So please do not use a pencil. If you're going to do that part yourself, make sure you have a pen. Do it under adult supervision, preferably. Okay, so now you have your loop. Okay, thank you for those of you who have the kit at home for your patients. You have your loop. Now you want to, you put your string to it. So you've got a way to hang it. Now I'm going back to my folks who have the kit. You have your kit. You want to take your ribbon. Everybody go ahead, take your ribbon, take your string, your old shoelace, whatever you have, new shoelace, whatever you have that kind of is about this length. I'd say this is about, oh, I didn't measure it, about 15 inches is my guess. You know what? Maybe somewhere between 1.5 to 2 feet. Okay. If you have, I'll tell you another trick. If you have a thinner material, it doesn't need to be as long. Okay. So if you have a shoelace, it could be half that size. But if you have a ribbon, this is about a 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch ribbon in width, you're going to need it to be a lot longer. So you're going to wrap it around your hoop. This is for any of you, whether you have a kit at home or not, you have the materials you need for this. You're going to wrap it around your hoop. And John, tell me if I'm not doing a good angle on this.
We can see it.
Yeah, okay. And then you're going to just tie it. Okay. That's it. That's first thing. Now, some of you may like the way that looks. You can even just cut it, grab a scissor and just cut it. And then you can pull it real tight, preferably before you cut it. You should do that now. So pull it real tight so that big knot in the middle is smaller and it'll stay better. And if you just like it the way that is, you can leave it like that. Oops, I'm not in my frame. So there we go. Or you can cut off the end of it so that it's just a little, piece of the ribbon hanging off of it. That's fine. If you don't like the ribbon, you don't have to use the ribbon. That's fine too. For those of you who have the kit we sent you, that metal that's holding it all together, you can just move that around. So if your heart is not in the right place, which we hope your heart's in the right place, but if your heart's not in the right place, you can just move that around pretty easily on that wire, okay? And then you may need, if you're a younger kid, you may need some help making your bow, which is fine, nothing wrong with that. Honestly, if you're an older kid, you may need some help making your bow. And honestly, if you're an adult, you may need some help making your bow. So bows are just hard, is what I'm trying to get across. And but you'll have your bow when you're done. I will show you in just a moment. Here you go. So go ahead and make your bow. There you go. Make your bow. Put that on there. Now, I think that these things are too long for me personally. I want to cut them. I always recommend cutting on an angle. To me, angle cutting looks nice. I'm going to show you another way you can cut it as well. I call it the fork method, but I don't think that's the official term at all. So those are the two ways I recommend cutting it if you wanted to trim it. The first way is over here. And I'm waiting for it to focus a little bit better, but it's just a slant cut as opposed to just cutting straight across. Then the other side is, oh, there you go. You see the slant cut here.
Yeah, we can see it.
And then on this side, I did what I call a fork cut. I have no idea what the correct term is, but you basically just cut it up on one side, cut it up on the other side. Those two cuts meet in the middle and take that piece out, and you've got kind of a fork cut. Whichever way you prefer, I recommend that you stay consistent and do both sides the same. So towards that end, I am going to make, I'm going to go ahead and make my slant cut on both sides. So it's parallel on both sides. You can fix up your ribbon, tilt it a little one way or another, either way. Keep in mind if it's touching the paint, because the paint has glue in it, it's going to stick to it. So whatever position you want it to be in, you want to either make sure it's in that position now or make sure it's not touching the paint, or my two recommendations. You know, earlier we talked about instructions and how important instructions were. And, you know, we just had this long craft, you saw how to do it and everything. I wonder tomorrow, a week from now, a year from now, if you would remember all the instructions you had for this craft. Let's say if you didn't have that craft around anymore and somebody was like, oh, what was that craft you did? It was so cute. I loved it. Because of course, that's what they'll say about our crafts. Would you remember even after listening really well? And research says, when we looked into it, research says that people tend to only remember 10% of what happened in a conversation after that conversation happened. Can you imagine? You only remember 10% of it. And oftentimes what we remember instead is either what we expected to happen. So for example, you would expect the conversation to be like, hi, how are you? How are you? So later on, if you ask somebody, oh, did we say how are you to each other in that conversation? You'd be like, yeah, of course we did. But you might not have. It's just you expected that to happen. And so our memory is kind of faulty. It doesn't work sometimes the way we want it to. We only remember 10%. So keep that in mind when you're having conversations. Even when you're listening to somebody, we think we're listening so carefully. And then, you know, we have an argument later, or somebody says something we don't like later. We say, well, but you said this thing before. It's good to take a step back and say something like, I remember you said this thing. Did you say that? Is that what you meant? And see what the other person says. Or maybe they're like, I didn't say that. Maybe we want to give them the benefit of the doubt and say, well, are you sure? Okay. If you say you didn't say it, no problem. I thought you did, but now I know memory is faulty and sometimes we forget things. So, and I'm always just blown away by that 10% statistic. So you have your beautiful, by the way, 10% means you only remember one of the 10 things that was said. Only one of them. Okay, so here's your beautiful heart. You have versions of your own. For anybody who's on the call who wants to share their version, feel free. We would love to see it in the windows. We may even be able to spotlight you so we can do it. If you don't want to share, that's fine too. We have a few different versions here. Here's an old one that we had made.
Does anybody want to hold theirs up if they have one ready?
We'd love to see it. Oh,
Oh, I see one on the edge. I like that.
oh, that's great. You did that was excellent. Great job. That's fantastic. Oh, great. I love it. Thank you. There it is. There it is. Thank you so much. Love them. Love it. Love it.
They came out
Oh, I
great.
love both of them. And you notice how different they are, right? Different hearts, different personalities. You know, it's wonderful. Absolutely great. Look how great those are. Thank you for sharing. I really appreciate it. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So John, you wanna close us out here? Give us anything else we need to know?
Absolutely. While everyone else is finishing up theirs, I just want to start by thanking Stacy and everybody for joining us today to celebrate this Family Fun Month activity. Oh, there's a few more being demonstrated. Oh, that's Stacy again.
That's me.
So we've been talking about productive discourse, which is how to speak well to each other on sometimes difficult topics. And that is not something that you get right away. It takes practice and it takes experience. So starting with some of the upcoming holidays, maybe you can start practicing some of this with your families, but maybe you'll need some reminders or, you know, something to help, you know, guide some of those things. Well, we're going to make available after this call the video of this event and also an infographic that covers a lot of the same topics and also provides some continued reading to further understand these ideas. We encourage you to share that with anybody that you think will benefit from it. Productive discourse is something we should all be engaged in and all working to do better. Yeah. Additionally, I'm going to ask everybody to try to commit to having one step in the next week to help make a productive discourse. Whether that's somebody who maybe you've been struggling to communicate with, trying to understand them a little more deeply, or just asking somebody a question about something that maybe you got mad about in the past to better understand it. Find some common ground. I'll make you a bet you're going to find often it's not what the person intended is the way you've taken it. We often can get those confused.
It's true. That's true. Excellent. Excellent point. There's a quote that struck out to me as we were planning this event, John, and it was from Martin Luther King Jr. And I know you're thinking, oh, she just threw that in here, but no, really, like sometimes these things just come to my mind. But in his really famous speech way back in 1963, he said something that's still true today. And he said, let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. And the part there is this like cup of bitterness and hatred. And sometimes when we get into these conversations, regardless of what they're about, regardless of who they're with, we end up getting so, you know, like mad and we feel uncomfortable and we're so sad and we're upset and we're just like drinking those emotions, right? That we can't get out of them. They almost like, you know, we can't get past them. And so it's really important, like you said, to use these strategies, empathy and all the things we talked about, giving someone the benefit of the doubt, finding common ground, listening, things like that, to really help us get past the kind of being upset feeling that we have. Because we can stay there for a really long time, but it's so much more freeing if we can kind of get past it and talk to a person and really try to understand where they're coming from and help them understand where we're coming from. And plus just find out new things. I love the idea of Thanksgiving, just finding out about our relatives and our families, Uncle John liking hiking, maybe, you know, maybe the relatives didn't know that Uncle John likes hiking, right? And so you can talk about that and share that. So it's great. Excellent point, John. And thank you for facilitating, by the way.
Thank you, Stacy. Well, just to wrap up, we are going to be sending out an email with a brief survey. We want to make these events as fun and educational as possible, so your feedback matters. Please let us know how we can make these better. There's also an upcoming children's crafting event for Citizens Day on Saturday, September 17th. Now, again, we don't do just kids crafting event. There is an adult crafting event on remote learning on August 25th. All of these and more are available on our website. So again, please look forward to the email that we send with the survey, the recording of this event, and the infographic. And we look forward to learning more about, we hope we will see you, and you can learn more about great events at Inform Your Community.